Today's first story was posted by Spirited Willow. Am I the asshole for not letting my sister walk down the aisle at my wedding? I, 29 female, am getting married to the love of my life, 30 male, in a few months. We were high school lovers, and childhood friends. He's truly my best friend and everything I want in life. However, we both decided to wait until we were well off to be married, so we could have our once-in-a-lifetime magical moment. My sister, Stacy, 21 female, got married at 19 to someone who I like, but I'm not super close with. They were together for 5 months before he proposed. Their wedding was rushed, and half our family couldn't even make it because of how soon it was planned and set up. It was small, and just in a courtroom. No dress, party, etc., just a legal wedding. However, my wedding is around $19K, and we haven't even finished everything. It took us ages to set everything up and save. Stacy recently came up to me while coming over, we're close, and have dinner once a week at my place, and asked if she could walk down my aisle and meet her husband, so she could feel like a bride. I laughed and asked if she was serious, and she was. She claims she never got her magic moment, and just wants to feel special once. But, it's my wedding and my special day, she had hers. Stacy claims it will only be between us, and it won't take away from me, but then I asked what she might wear and she showed me pictures on her phone of wedding dresses. Hard no for me. She then asked again yesterday in front of my fiancé, and I think it was an attempt to pressure me. He laughed and said no, thinking it was a joke, like I did the first time. My mother and Stacy's husband say I'm being an asshole because Stacy still isn't rich, so she can't afford another wedding even if she wanted one, but neither are me and my future husband. We just planned for years. I just wanted one day for myself, but maybe I'm blowing it up because she never got the bridal experience. Update. Hello everyone, I just wanted to post an update on the situation with my sister, Stacy. I'm not sure how to add links to my old post, but I will try to find out. The day after I made the post, me, my fiancé, Stacy, and her husband met up for brunch. I told her she needed to hear me out fully, before she spoke, and thankfully she did. In short, I told her as much as I love her, I've waited years for this day, and it was mine. She had hers, and if she truly wanted she could have used the money I gifted her to get her own wedding. Her husband to cut me off and say that they needed the money for rent, but she didn't let him talk. I showed her the Reddit post, and she started crying, and asked her husband and my fiancé to step out for a few minutes. They both did, and she told me her husband and our mom had been the ones pressuring her, since she had admittedly been jealous, and told them both she wished she could have a larger-scale wedding. She said she had been over the whole thing, until her husband started saying it wasn't fair because he was jealous he couldn't provide for her, and eventually complained enough she asked to walk down the aisle for him. Stacy said she was willing to fully back out of the wedding, and would understand given the heartache she's given me, but I told her that her husband would be the one without an invite, which she gratefully agreed to. We talked more in depth on why she was jealous, and she said she regretted being married so early just so our father could be at her wedding. After a few more minutes and both of us crying and forgiving one another, I told her she could always tell me anything, even if it was between her and her husband. When my fiancée and her husband came back in, I told Stacy's husband he was uninvited, right then and there, and he seemed to understand why immediately, though he did groan about it, and call me multiple times, but I blocked him. Again, over the past few days, our mother has called to apologize, and me and Stacy have been talking much more openly and honestly to one another. I decided to let her wear a dark silver or pale gold dress, to match my theme, and walk with me down the aisle, as my father sadly can't. She told me I didn't need to, but I insisted. We ended up finding a dress we both love, and I got it as a gift for her. Thank you all for the support and kind words. Before we go to our second story, don't forget to like and subscribe. This story was posted by Throwaway Alaska 999. Am I the asshole for running away from home? I 15 female will be a junior in high school once the new school year starts. I have a little brother I'll call Matt, 3 male. My parents both work full-time jobs in the business district. I was a planned baby, but Matt wasn't. My parents considered putting him up for adoption, but couldn't do it. They don't know I know this. Once my mom ended her maternity leave, 2 weeks early, there was a schedule of who watched Matt when. Mom leaves for work at 4:30 a.m., waking me up on the way. I watch Matt until I need to go to school at 7 o'clock, and by that time, my dad is up and takes over. I get home from school at 3:45 p.m., and my dad leaves for his work at no later than 4 p.m. I watch him till my mom gets home at 6 p.m. For the first year, that's how it went. I was fine with that. Now, my mom has shifted her hours to work later. I watch Matt till he sleeps, and I can't sleep till my mom gets home, which is usually 10 to 11 at night. On top of that, I do anything that needs doing at home. I'm in AP classes, and have my homework to do as well. Matt's not very well behaved. He's had health issues since birth that cause him discomfort. He's a toddler, and I get that, but his tantrums and general demeanor make it hard for me to get things done. The 2 things that tore me down most happened a week before school ended back in May. I managed to talk to my mom and asked her if we could please hire a sitter to look after Matt. I want to take on some extracurricular. Her response was they didn't need to waste money on that, because they had me. 2 days later, my mom got home at 5 p.m., early, for her, and after eating dinner, told me to ask the school if I could shorten my class load next year in order to spend more time at home, since my dad also apparently wants to shift his hours. I told her no. She got mad, saying I needed to be more understanding and accepting. I had enough and blew up. I can't remember what all was said, but I do remember yelling that I wasn't my little brother's parent. I stormed to my room, stuffed some things in my backpack, and left while my mom was distracted by my brother. I'm safe. I called my grandmother and explained what was going on. She and my mother are estranged, but we managed to stay close. Once she picked me up and got the details, she said she understood. My parents blew up my phone, demanding I come home and telling me I should be ashamed I'm acting this way. My grandmother blocked their numbers. She did talk to them, and they agreed I can stay where I'm at until I get my head on straight. I feel guilty for leaving my brother, but at the same time, I feel so worn out. Other family weighed in. While most are on my side, others say I need to accept my duties in the family and suck it up. I'm conflicted and don't know what to do. So am I the asshole for running away? Update. It's been a few weeks, but quite a bit has happened. I'll try my best to keep things concise. Once again, thank you for all your comments and support. They meant a lot to myself and my grandmother, who says hello. Firstly, my father managed to find my post despite my efforts. He told my mother about it, and she proceeded to blast me to the members of my extended family via social media, saying I made them look bad. She deleted the post a few hours later according to my cousins, who support me. A few days later, during a meeting between my parents and myself, my grandmother, and our lawyer, my father apologized to me, and I felt it was sincere. As for my mother, she was silently fuming. Matt was at their house with one of my aunts. They agreed, with great reluctance on my mother's end, to give my grandmother full custody of me for my remaining 3 years as a minor. The next day, my grandmother and some of my supportive family members helped me get what I had for belongings out of my parents' house. I didn't feel true relief until that moment. Now, I'm trying to enjoy my summer. I'm hanging out with friends. Going swimming. I'm relaxing. I'm finally reading books I bought 3 years ago that I never got a chance to read. I'm planning extracurricular for next semester, and even planning a birthday party, my first in 3 years, for my sweet 16 in February. I'm also helping my grandmother around the house. I do chores, but this time, I'm getting an allowance. Even my sleep has improved. It's a whole new way of living, and it's kind of overwhelming, but I've never been happier. Hopefully, this is the last time I post. I'm going to log off Reddit and go out with my grandmother for some shopping. Thank you all. Our last story was posted by OK Independence 579. I ghosted my family and fiancé after what my sister did. I need a little advice on the matter as I don't know what to do anymore. I was 21 when my fiancé asked me to marry him. He was the absolute light of my life. We had known each other since preschool, our families are very close. He would come and have dinner with us on a daily basis and vice versa. He doesn't have any siblings but I have 2 older sisters. Which is very important as he was also very close with them. We grew up together. When we started dating, I don't think our parents stopped celebrating for weeks. He helped me deal with a lot of my anxiety, and even when I gained a little weight and my mother berated me saying he was going to leave me, he told her off and said he loved me for who I was, not for what I looked like, even though he claimed I was the most beautiful girl in the world to him. We were only engaged for 6 months before the incident. My middle oldest sister, let's call her Nikki, was a very cold person. She never showed any affection. She only ever opened up to my fiancé as she said she saw him as a brother, and he also helped her through a lot of her dark times such as battling drug addictions and breaking the law. She and I never saw eye to eye. I loved her dearly because she was my sister but didn't like her as a person. Out of the blue she tells me she wants to take me clubbing as we had never been together before and she felt bad that she was so distant to me. I agreed and that night we went out. Clubbing wasn't really my style but once I had a few drinks, I loosened up a little and began having fun. The night was going smoothly until Nikki spotted a guy across the room whom she claimed she wanted to climb like a tree. She walked over to him and within a few minutes she was back and she had a sour expression on her face. I asked her what was up but she never said anything. I kept pressing because I didn't want our night to be ruined. She then told me the guy didn't want her number but he wanted mine instead. I told her he was a loser and there were plenty of guys around who would kill to be with a girl like her. She didn't budge though. She told me she needed to use the restroom and then we would leave. I waited for an hour. During this time I was sipping on a lot of different cocktails. I then started feeling really dizzy and lightheaded. I figured I'd just cab it home as I was certain Nikki had left. On the way out though, I bumped into a friend of Nikki's whom she had briefly dated. He asked me if I needed a hand to my car and I explained I was getting a cab. He said he was getting ready to leave and we could share one. I told him okay and we walked out of the club together and into the first cab we saw. I tried to find my phone in my purse but I felt myself getting dizzier and dizzier. I don't remember what happened next as I blacked out and the next morning I woke up on a hard sofa, my head pounding. When I came to, I realized I was in Nikki's friend's house and my phone was sitting on the glass table in front of me, but it was flat. When he noticed I was awake he offered some tablets and water and explained that I had passed out in the cab and he didn't remember my parents' address so he just picked me up and took me back here where he laid me on the sofa. I told him I needed to go home as my fiancé would be worried. He called a cab and I left. When I arrived at my parents' house, my mother, father, Nikki, my fiancé and his parents were all standing in the living room. I thought they were worried about me but the instant I opened my mouth my fiancé asked how could I do this to him. I tried to explain that my phone went flat but he then went on screaming about how I could cheat on him. I was baffled. Why would he think that? I tried to explain the night's events but I kept getting cut off. Nikki then chimed in and said I was a lying s and how could I be so heartless to a man who has been there for me through thick and thin. She went on to say I kept flirting with random guys all night and then when she went to the bathroom, she saw me leave with her friend. I told her what had happened and she showed me photos on her phone where as we were leaving, his hand was on my back ushering me outside. Yes, the photo did look horrible and I was so drunk I didn't even realize his hand was on my back at all. My fiancé was so angry, he kept shouting and his mom and mine were both crying. I then asked Nikki to call her friend and he would confirm nothing happened but when she called him, he told a completely different story. He said I begged him to take me back to his and when he did, we slept together multiple times. I saw red and started crying and yelling at Nikki because I knew she had organized this whole thing to make me look bad. I begged my fiancé to believe me, but he just shook his head and left. When everyone had cleared out, my mother slapped me across the face and told me to get out. I left and went to a friend's house where I stayed for a few nights. During those nights I called my fiancé crying and pleading with him to believe me that nothing happened, but it all fell on deaf ears as he never returned any of my calls or texts. My mum texted me and told me she was kicking me out and that she couldn't believe I would do such a thing, and a lot of hurtful other slurs I don't think I could repeat here. She didn't even give me time to get my things as she threw everything out. I was now homeless. None of my family would take me in, as they chose my fiancé and mother's side. I was homeless and single in less than a day and a half. My entire world had been taken away because of Nikki's lies. Now for weeks I tried everything to get my fiancé back and my family. The limit for me though was when Christmas time had come and I went over to my mother's house to try and reconcile. I was sleeping from couch to couch during this time. When I got to my parents' house, I knocked on the door but no one answered. My friend then called me and told me she just saw on Facebook that my family were in another state celebrating Christmas and they had posted pictures online. Everyone was there, my sisters, parents, grandparents, and even my fiancé and his family. When I myself saw the photos, I couldn't stop crying as they all looked so happy. I cried for days and days before deciding to block them all. I even returned my engagement ring. My friend knew someone a couple hours away who was looking for some help in his restaurant, and he even had living arrangements above where he worked so I could get rent at a cheap price and work at the same time. I wanted to start over with my life as it hurt me that no one took my side and they all left me to fend for myself. I was able to move pretty quickly and was doing well. The apartment was tiny and I had to work 10+ hours almost every day, but I was able to save a lot of money. I'm not living in the apartment anymore. I was able to rent a much nicer condo, but I am still working at the restaurant as assistant manager. Now it has been roughly 2 years since I left and have not spoken to any of my family. I have no idea what is going with them until I got a knock on my door. It was my ex-fiancé. I was shocked to say the least. All these feelings came rushing back and all I wanted to do was jump into his arms. But then I remembered the pain I had felt and tried to slam the door in his face, but he stopped it and asked that I let him explain. He said that Nikki had gotten married and she had confessed that she lied about the situation because she had found someone she loved so much and realized what a horrible thing she had done. I asked him how he found me and he said my friend told him. My entire family had been trying to get in touch with me and want to see me. I told him I needed time to see if I even wanted to have them in my life. He left and I have been a mess since. I don't know what to do. I know I will never ever forgive Nikki. She could rot for all I cared, but it's hard because my other family and fiancé didn't know she was lying, but I also felt like they abandoned me too quickly without letting me explain my side. I don't know if I should forgive them. Any advice would be much helpful. Thank you for taking the time to read. Update. Wow guys, I don't even know where to begin. I am honestly so grateful for all the support, advice, beautiful messages and awards you guys have gifted. I wish I could personally thank each and every one of you, and I did try my best to reply to every message. You guys are honestly so amazing and I cried reading all the comments. My heart has never been so touched with the amount of love and support I got on this post, and I am so sorry if it took too long to post an update. I was honestly in so much shock I didn't know how to cope with it. So, I never got back to my ex. I didn't know what to do, but eventually he must have given my phone number to my parents as they texted asking to meet up. I never replied and was planning on organizing a Zoom meeting but didn't need to as they also showed up at my door. Well, my father did. When I answered the door and saw him standing there, I ended up throwing up, which he insisted on cleaning. When he was done, we sat down and I just busted in tears. My emotions were all over the place, and my father has worn the same cologne for a really long time, so when I smelt it, it just brought back all these memories. He tried to hug me but I pushed him away and asked what he was doing here. He went on to explain he and my mother are getting a divorce. He said he begged my mother to get in touch with me the minute I left, but she refused and said I was acting like a baby, and if I wanted to leave them after doing something so horrible, then I could do things on my own from then on. I asked him how long did it take them to notice I was gone. He said they arrived back home after New Year's Eve and were planning